My name is Professor Jennifer Gabrys, and I'm Chair in Media, Culture and Environment in the Department of Sociology at the University of Cambridge. And my work focuses on the intersection of digital technologies, social life, and environmental problems. So I've worked quite extensively on how citizens monitor air pollution using digital sensors, for instance. I look at what it means that citizens are generating their own data using digital technologies and how they use this data to try to influence change. And I'm also working on larger questions of environmental governance and how digital technologies are increasingly being used to monitor and manage environments. So I'm working on a lot of the questions that are quite key to democracy and technology, but focusing especially on what these intersections mean for environmental problems. Key research that I'm conducting right now is really almost transitioning from one big project into another big project. So I have been working on a project called Citizen Sense, which received funding from the European Research Council. And that project was really investigating how citizens are using sensors to collect data about all sorts of environmental problems, from noise pollution, water pollution, to air pollution. And we focused especially on air pollution for that project. We looked at fracking in Northeast Pennsylvania. We looked at air pollution in Southeast London. And we're also now building, through a proof of concept grant, an air kit, a toolkit, so citizens can monitor their own air, set up air quality campaigns, and also interpret data and put together data stories. So that project has really been going on for about 8 years now, a very long time, which is, I suppose, one of the real benefits of the ERC research funding. And now I am developing a new project also funded by the ERC called Smart Forests. And this project is looking at how, like smart cities, forests are becoming smart environments, and very many different types of digital technologies are being used to observe, manage, and even transform forest environments, whether it's to undertake monitoring by drones, to assess wildfires, to undertake reforestation through different automated techniques, or even to encourage citizen participation, where people might monitor deforestation by analyzing remote sensing images. So because I have these really interconnected projects, which are ongoing, Citizen Sense hasn't ended necessarily. I have also set up a larger research group called Planetary Praxis that is an umbrella for all of these projects. Our work really does have key implications for thinking about policy in so many areas. Of course, we're very concerned about the intersection of democracy and technology, and are looking at the ways in which people might participate in policy making, how they might contribute distinct and unique insights through collecting their own data, how they might actually generate new forms of democratic participation through digital tools and other means. So this is a key area that we're very invested in, and I think has real implications for policymaking. We are actually in conversation with several different policymakers and policymaking bodies about how to advance public engagement in policymaking, how to bring citizens into conversations really early on in the process of assessing problems, of looking at how to transform situations like climate change or environmental justice or air pollution. There are so many ways in which having citizens at the table really early on can help to transform the whole process. And I think one of the key things we found is that by having greater citizen participation, it's also more sort of effective in coming up with solutions or actions that might be brought to environmental problems. So our air pollution work is a key example of this, where by collecting data, citizens weren't merely demonstrating that pollution was at elevated levels above regulatory guidelines, but they were able to demonstrate where pollution was coming from, where it was located, and how it might be mitigated by interventions into transport, infrastructure, by improving green infrastructure, and so on. So these are ways in which data can also be very complementary. These different types of citizen contributions can be very complementary to policymaking, at the same time that they might challenge the ways in which policymaking is undertaken. So we're really hoping that this will be something we can bring to the Smart Forest project as well, which has a strong participatory component. We'll be looking at how to engage in dialogue with a broad range of stakeholders who are focused on forests and environmental change. We'll be looking at what the implications of digital technologies and digital means of management are for smart forests. And we'll be talking about how to potentially develop these situations to be more democratic. So that's really the kind of key focus of our work, is to ensure that these intersections of democratic participation and technology are really robust and working to advance public engagement rather than to diminish it through increasingly kind of monopolistic and restrictive forms of technological infrastructures. So over the past year or so, I've worked with CSaP on a number of initiatives, but most prominently has been a year-long citizen science initiative with Katie Cohen and Robert Doubleday. And we have really participated in a number of events, including with Johannes Vogel from the Natural History Museum in Berlin, and seminars with a number of experts in the field. And we've discussed how citizen science is really informing and entering into spaces of policy making. We've asked, what is citizen science? Is it important to define what citizen science is, or is there something quite productive and interesting about allowing it to be a more pluralistic way of thinking about public engagement with science and society? So these are key questions that we've asked. We've held seminars and discussions also with policymakers from the Food Standards Agency and from other entities within government. So this has been, I think, really fruitful in thinking about how to ensure greater democratic participation in policymaking, especially from the perspective of environmental engagement for my own work, and how this might be a way of ensuring greater environmental and social justice as well. So these are questions that have come up within our broader public conversations. How can we really ensure that these modes of public engagement are broad, inclusive, that do not speak to the usual suspects, but that actually do draw on a number of voices and a number of contributors so that these are the most widely represented constituents possible. So this is really something that I think is a key challenge as well, that CSaP is not just a one-way conversation, but that through these developments with policymakers and with CSaP itself, it's able to really push research and my own research along to think about how to keep these questions at the forefront and really bring them into some of the new major initiatives that I'm undertaking now.